Dark Souls turns 10 years old this September. First of all, wow. And secondly, for a game renowned for its difficulty, it's difficult to name a game from the last decade that has had more of an impact on the gaming landscape than Dark Souls has. And while there are many reasons why Dark Souls offers such a unique, lasting experience, today I want to focus on Dark Souls 1's masterful final boss fight in the Kiln of the First Flame. In case you missed last week's video about Demon Souls' final boss, I'm covering the final bosses of many of the Soulsborne games this month in an event I've dubbed as From Software February. Videos on Bloodborne and Sekiro will be out in the coming weeks, but until then, let's dive back into the treacherous lands of Lordran as we break down the tragic final battle between the Chosen Undead and Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. At the very beginning of Dark Souls, we are shown a cutscene that demonstrates the power that Gwyn possesses. Gwyn assembled allies, commanded armies, and challenged the primordial dragons and the very concept of immortality. And he succeeded. He succeeded so well, in fact, that he progressed the world into an entirely new Age of Fire and founded civilization as we know it. Gwyn is not only literally a god from the power of his Lord Soul, he is effectively the god of the Dark Souls universe, at least during the first Age of Fire that he heralded. So when you arrive at the final fog gate within the Kiln of the First Flame, you expect grandiosity. Many of Dark Souls' bosses are introduced with daunting, epic cutscenes that establish them as grave threats to the player. But when you steel yourself for your most difficult battle yet and you cross the threshold into the Kiln, this is what you're greeted with. There's no cutscene, no dialogue, no building of suspense. Just a tired old man who runs across the ash and begins attacking you as melancholy piano music plays over the fight. It's honestly difficult to put into words just how powerful this moment is. Gwyn has been built up from the very first moments of the game to be your ultimate challenge, the all-powerful being that you must strike down in order to revive the decaying world. Yet ultimately, the god who ended the reign of the dragons and ushered in the prosperous Age of Fire so feared the fall of his empire and so feared the impending dark that he fed himself to the First Flame for nearly a millennia until he was only a burnt-out husk of a thing. Gwyn, once capable of hurling lightning itself to slay immortal dragons, can now only muster a small explosion in his hand to harm the player. I mentioned the music briefly before, but its importance in this fight cannot be overstated. Most of the boss themes in Dark Souls provoke feelings of epicness and imminent danger, but Gwyn's theme is effectively the opposite of that. That iconic sets the tone of the fight instantly and differentiates it from every other fight in the game. As hard as you fought to get to this moment, for all the deaths and challenges you've had to overcome, the end of your journey is sad. Tragic even, and that says a lot about your character's journey as a whole, but we'll cover this idea further in a bit. Quick fun fact while we're talking about music, the name Gwyn is Welsh for white, and Gwyn's theme is played on the piano, specifically only on the white keys of the piano, which may be an unintentional coincidence, but it's a cool unintentional coincidence at the very least. In terms of the fight itself, Gwyn is relentless. He is, by a wide margin, the most aggressive boss in Dark Souls, with his swift combo attacks, his ceaseless assault, and his ability to quickly close the distance on the player. Getting off even a single heal will pose a problem for the player if not timed strategically, and this is without a doubt the most difficult aspect of the fight. Dark Souls 1 in particular forces the player to think very carefully about the inputs they make, and even a single mistake here can lead to your health being rapidly depleted if you're not careful. You can use the rocks scattered around the arena to your advantage to a certain degree, but even those don't guarantee safety, as the long reach of Gwyn's flaming sword still poses a threat to you through these obstacles. However, Gwyn can be defeated quite easily by parrying his attacks. His two-handed attacks in particular have very generous parry timing windows, and unfortunately, this can easily trivialize the fight. I'd mark this as the only real flaw in Gwyn's design and difficulty, although it does reward players who have learned to parry enemy attacks throughout the game, which is definitely a positive. It could be argued, though, that Gwyn's lack of difficulty through parrying him is intentional. After all, Gwyn is a shadow of his former self when you finally confront him, and the fact that you're able to overcome him with relative ease if you parry him only adds to the tragic nature of the duel if you ask me. To be clear, parrying isn't an essential skill to complete the game. In fact, on my first playthrough of Dark Souls 1, I barely learned to parry at all, and I didn't even know that Gwyn could be parried, so I didn't bother trying. It made the fight exponentially more difficult, but also made it incredibly rewarding to finally overcome him. And I'd strongly encourage anyone who hasn't beaten Gwyn without parrying to give it a shot, as it might make you see Gwyn in a new light. When the player finally defeats Gwyn and he collapses on his knees defeated, all that's left is to link the first flame, the goal that the Chosen Undead has been tasked with since leaving the asylum at the beginning of Dark Souls. Supposedly, this will usher in a new age of fire and a new age of prosperity, but will it really? Gwyn's Age of Fire, at its peak, was supposedly bountiful, but look at the suffering and horror that emerged from its unnaturally long duration. Is it just to continue this cycle, especially if it means your character will be consumed by the very fire that shoulders the world? What fate could possibly await them besides the same fate that Gwyn succumbed to? The other option given to the player is to leave the kiln, to let the first flame die out, and to usher in the Age of Man. But casting the world into darkness offers no guarantee that the world will heal or improve in the long run. Similar to Demon Souls, there is no good or bad choice, but rather two choices of ambiguous outcome. The ending of Dark Souls and the boss that accompanies it will always stick with me as one of the most memorable moments in all of gaming. The fight itself is a story of triumph and tragedy, of a once powerful god reduced to mere ashes. And perhaps that same fate becomes inevitable for the player character. In the end, like with so many things in Dark Souls, the outcome is entirely up to you. Thank you for watching. Gwyn is and always will be one of my favorite boss battles in the Soulsborne series, and in all of gaming for that matter, so it was a pleasure to discuss what makes him so special in this video. From Software February continues next week, when we cover an even more tragic fight with the final boss of Bloodborne. Until then, stay safe, play some Souls games, and don't you dare go hollow.